Welcome to ILTV's Elections Arena. I'm Aaron Porras, and today in the ring, a government in Israel finally takes form. And it only took 484 days, 3 election cycles, and a pandemic to do it. But still, a coalition has now been announced. And joining us today in the arena to discuss it is Israeli attorney and legal advisor to the Israeli Movement for Governability and Democracy, Simcha Rotman, and columnist for Newsweek and editor of HistoryCentral.com, Mark Schulman. Thank you both so much for being with us today. Now, first, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Knesset Speaker Benny Gantz have officially signed a rotational unity deal. And most Israelis across the spectrum are pretty happy with the news, as any government is often seen as better than nothing at this point.
Of course, I'm happy. Any Democratic would be happy that there's a new government. Will it be the right thing that I want? I'm not so sure. I'm not exactly the Bibi person. But at this challenging of COVID-19, which Israel is quite safely referring to it, I hope just that the next thing that the economy will start moving.
Now, Mark, I actually want to start with you. This government was formed under the status of an emergency government to deal with the coronavirus, but already they're getting a lot of attention and criticism for easing the restrictions too soon. Do you think that this government is supposedly failing its raison d'etre?
Well, okay, let's start. The government isn't there yet, so you can't give the new government the responsibility for whatever's been done. I mean, I agree with the decision. I agree that it was too soon, the decisions to let people go too quickly. I think is a tremendous mistake. We should be like New Zealand and be looking to get to zero. We had 200 and something new cases. If we had had that at the beginning, we would have said it's a disaster. But leave that part aside. Look, this is a government that's claimed for a corona emergency government. It's not. Let's be honest here. If it was a corona emergency government, then members of the Blue and White would be insisting on having some sort of responsibility for that. They're taking all sorts of other jobs, none of them relating to corona. Not to mention, there's nothing in this agreement that really relates to corona other than the fact that he could get to chair the corona supervisory committee that's supervising what's being done about corona. So it's not a corona emergency. That's just an excuse.
Well, they also said that with few exceptions that they're not allowed to really push any legislation that isn't related to the coronavirus for at least 6 months. With few exceptions.
That was yes, it's true that's the case, and that's the reason that the Blue and White have agreed to go in, because there are deep ideological differences between some of the members of Blue and White and what will be the rest of the government, and they don't want to tear the government apart over those issues at this point. So they, kick the proverbial can down the road, so that it'll be after 6 months before they decide anything that could be controversial.
Simcha, I want to
look everything.
Yeah, I want to actually just try to move to Simcha. Simcha, let me get your take on this.
Yeah, I think you can see that the government have some problems because they really plan a short-term emergency government, but they want to keep it for 3 years. So it created some problems, but I don't agree with the fact that with the presumptions that it won't take care of the corona. The corona cabinet is headed by 2 people, by the prime minister and the second prime minister, Gantz. For the first half a year, you can't pass any legislation, doesn't matter what you want, that is not related to corona. And I think that also the amount and the scope of the seats in the cabinet that the Blue and White get and the Likud get is pretty much dividing the responsibility and the work on the coronavirus. There is the security, the defense ministry is supposed to be in charge, and we saw in the past few weeks and months that the defense ministry did a lot to help Israel get over coronavirus crises, and we see it in other issues. I think that the fact that many people are happy that there is a government at last, many people are unhappy with this arrangement or another arrangement within this government, and I think it's so you must understand that it's probably a good compromise because no one is too happy.
Let me just agree with at least part of that and say there's no question that this government, what there exists now, will be able to deal as best as possible with the current crisis. That there's no question. And I think one of the things that I concluded in the last couple of weeks when we're going back and forth, was Netanyahu going to go for it? Was he not going to go for it? Was he going to go for it? Was he not going to go for it? I think he actually is tired and needs help. And I think Blue and White, and especially Gantz and a few others, bring some high-level people in terms of ability and administrative ability. And the challenges that Israel faces in the next couple of months, both on the health front, but the economic fallout of what's taking place, not only here in Israel, but what's taking place with all of our trading partners and investors and everything else, is going to require some really top-level management to deal with. And even top-level management is going to have a hard time dealing with the crisis we're going to face in the next couple of months.
Well, so let me actually ask a question to go deeper on that, because the final government will consist of at least 32 different ministers and 16 different vice ministers or deputy ministers, and it will be roughly equal representation from the right and religious and the center-left bloc. How will that affect the coalition's ability to govern?
Look, the two issues. There are three issues that divide this country. One is religion and state. They're not going to touch that issue at all. It's, one of the things that Gantz agreed to was change in the draft law that was more in line with what the Haredi wanted. Obviously, this government's not going to touch that at all. There won't be any decisions made. It won't happen at all. The issue of annexation, West Bank, and all that, that's in the agreement, and that will work its way out depending on what happens with Trump and everything else.
It will be put to a vote likely in July.
Right. Maybe, maybe not. We will have to see what develops. On the economic front, I'm not sure where the differences lie. The members of the right, quote on the right, talk about neoliberalism, but when it comes to neoliberalism disappears in a crisis and in pandemics. And when a pandemic, everyone understands everywhere in the world, with except a few ideologues, that the role of government is very large in the economy during times of pandemic. And I don't think there's going to be much of a difference. Look, the Israeli government has done a terrible job, has done a reasonably good job economically. It's done a terrible job in supporting its people in terms of economically, and has given much less than most other countries. Maybe the new government will be able to do more. I don't know. The reality is we have an outgoing finance minister who has had one foot out of the office for the last 6 months or more. And so it's been up to the professional staff of the Ministry of Finance that have a certain perspective on life that some people don't agree with, that have been making the decisions. That may change now with the new government. I don't know. But that's really the biggest crisis Israel's going to face if we don't have another surge in terms of the cases of corona, because we've opened up a little bit too early.
Simcha?
I think the main benefit is not what the policy of the government that the government will take, the steps that the government will take, or any other decision. For the past, I would say, at least 5 or 6 years in Israel, we had basically an automatic opposition, an automatic coalition in all major issues. Meaning, if the government wanted to do something, by definition, it was the devil. And for the opposition, and the opposition would say whatever they can to stop it, and will try to do it in any legal or illegal or court or whatever to stop it. The fact that we'll now have a solid coalition of people, members of the center and the right, and maybe don't know yet, but maybe this government will have an opposition from the left and from the right. I believe that this kind of discourse, the discourse that we saw in the past few years, will change. We'll see a debate on the issues, and not about who offers the issue and who wants to promote his views. And it might change because that was not the case. And also, when you take steps on the coronavirus, many of the criticism that was offered during the past month or two was an automatic criticism, and the public saw it as such. Like, nothing the government would do or succeed will be good enough for the people on the opposition, because they want to take them down. Once you take this off the table, we might see more reasonable steps being taken by the government, and not of a fear of criticism of the opposition.
Well, so let's actually look at the opposition now and the strength of the opposition, because it's a very interesting makeup. that's not in the government right now. You have Avigdor Lieberman's Israel Beitenu party, you have the Telem and the Yesh Atid party, formerly of Blue and White, you have Meretz, and you have the Joint Arab List. These parties have some things in common, and they have a lot of things different, separate. But do you think that they're going to be effective agents of change from the opposition with this smattering of ideologies?
I think we're going to see a new government, a new party starting on the left center. It's left, or however to define it. Obviously, the Labour Party is now gone as a party. It doesn't exist anymore. It sort of merged into Blue and White, and I don't think it'll ever survive. It probably shouldn't have survived the last two elections. Meretz is a bad brand, and my opinion is there'll be something new that'll come on the left. Whether it'll be with Arab parts of the Arab community or not, I don't know. But that will clearly develop, and it'll have a clear ideological perspective in terms of socioeconomic and possibly relating to the issues of war and peace that I'm less sure of. The other issue, of course, is religion and state, and clearly Lapid and Lieberman share the same ideology in terms of wanting to remove the power of the ultra-Orthodox over the lives of average Israelis and separate those things out. They share that with most Israelis. It's just never been the most important issue for most Israelis. So it's not the most important issue. It's not what they vote on, although it's something that a lot of people care tremendously about, especially during times of marriage, divorce, or God forbid, in times of funerals. So these are things that will certainly unite them. We'll have to see whether the far right, whether Yamina is going to stay in the coalition or not. There's no real place in terms of the number of, they've had an awful lot of cabinet positions in the last government. Certainly they're not going to have the same sort of situation in this government, so we'll have to see what develops in terms of that. But I think the main opposition is going to be on the issues of religion and state more than anything else. Obviously, the issue of annexation is going to, if it goes forward, and I say if because it's not at all clear to me that Netanyahu is really going to want to do it, or that Trump is really going to be interested in doing it when the time comes. Now, we're getting awfully close to the American elections, and we have no idea how that's really going to play. But we'll leave that aside for the moment. That is an issue, of course, that will divide the country. Again, but the country's so tired. There's no question. In terms of politically, the country needs 2 or 3 years to recover for anyone to have a sense that anything can be done politically. And, of course, so many of the supporters of Blue and White or the Labour Party in this last election are leaving so disenchanted, is the only way I can say it, because everything they believed in, whether you think it was a good, Gantz made a good decision or didn't make a good decision, and whether it's practical or not, the reality is he left behind almost all of his voters in terms of what they voted on, the issues they voted for, the issues they voted for not to sit in the government with someone who's under indictment and about to go on trial, and of course also annexation. So they all voted against that, and they all have ended up with a government that their representatives are part of. So
Simcha, I actually
we'll
want to
see.
So Simcha, I want to turn to you because I neglected intentionally to mention Naftali Bennett, the current or former education minister and head of Yamina, who, it's unclear if he's going to be in the opposition or in the government. Why do you think he's on the fence? Why do you think he would not join the government? And how does that fit into the larger role in the opposition as well?
I think if you see the deal basically that Blue and White and the Likud made, you see that 3 major issues were dealt with. One of them, of course, is the coronavirus. Okay, put that aside. I don't think there is a big. I agree with Mark that there is not a big debate on this issue, how to deal with coronavirus. It's either you can manage it better than me or something like that, but it's not a policy issue that tears the bloc apart. But the other 2 issues are applying sovereignty on Judea and Samaria, and what will be what you would give in order to apply sovereignty, what will be the price that Israel will pay, and that's one issue that is on the table. And the second issue that the agreement deals with is the Supreme Court problem, the fact that in Israel we don't have really governability, and every decision is being second questioned by the court. You see that even we have a coalition agreement, but everyone sits and waits to see what will the Supreme Court will decide. So even the decision who will be the prime minister after a re-election is finally at the hand. Many people are, sadly, they're happy. Oh, now the court will finally have to decide if Netanyahu can be a prime minister, yes or not. Believe it or not, that's the question. So and with this issue,
deserved question.
And with this issue, the Likud gave up on many important strongholds the right had in the past few years. We're talking about the Judges Election Committee, and we're talking about the Justice Ministry, and we're talking about many other positions that within the Justice Ministry and within the Judiciary. And this was the main flag for Yamina. So Yamina can see that even both on sovereignty issue and both on governability issue, this coalition, they won't get their dreams, and they might even get their nightmares. So
yeah,
maybe
Marco, Mark, how do you feel about the Judiciary Committee and everything that's going on with the judiciary under this new unity? How do you think it's going to change?
No, I look at two things are going to change. First of all, the push that the Yamina has been making these last couple of years is going to be slowed down or stopped. Let's put it that way. You're not going to suddenly see a bunch of far left liberal judges being selected, but you're not going to see this constant push towards further right-wing judges, and you're not going to have someone like Ohana, who was working to undermine so many different professional decisions of the Ministry of Justice. So that really is going to change with this new coalition. That was one of the good reasons for going into this coalition from the Gantz's standpoint, was to support the judiciary and independent judiciary. And look, one thing became very clear to me now, I mean, it should be clear to everybody. We have to pass two basic laws, minimally, if not three, in order to make this government take place. Now, the idea that basic laws get changed for every particular government makes the whole idea of basic laws, quite frankly, a joke. And it goes back to the fact that undermines the very fact that we do not have a constitution. And basic laws are not a constitution because they only require 61 votes. If basic laws required 80 votes, then we might have a system of governance that would be real and stand up over time. But the idea that in order to bring this government in place, we're going to make changes in the basic laws, that seems really strange to anyone who's thinking about the basic laws as some format of a constitution, which most Israeli legal scholars have been saying for the last 20 years that, well, we don't have a constitution, but we have a series of basic laws, and they provide the framework for a constitution. That goes out, that we have to throw that out now if we can change basic laws just to meet a coalition agreement.
Simcha, final response, and then we'll move on.
I have to say that was the case almost every government that I can recall in the past few years. Definitely since in the last 10 years, every government that started changes the basic laws. Sometimes even before the government is being sworn in. That was the case many times in the past. Since I can recall, we have
10 years. Who's been the prime minister for 10 years?
You know what? It was a trap, because the first one who did it. The first one who did it very forcefully was Prime Minister Rabin in 25 years ago. But I knew you would say, oh, that's Netanyahu.
Yeah, I know I was walking into it because I blame Ben Gurion. So what do you want? I blame Ben Gurion for not going for constitutional
Ben Gurion's fault. Don't blame it all on the Netanyahu.
All right. Well, I want to move on.
Blame it.
All right, well, I want to move on to our final topic here, now, because as you can imagine, the Palestinian Authority has largely condemned the formation of this unity government, and that's primarily to do with the continued support for the United States' latest Middle East peace plan, a plan that includes annexations, which may come to a vote as soon as July 1st this summer.
If they move in the path of annexation and dictation, that means this government would have killed any prospects for negotiated settlements between Palestinians and Israelis, and they will be fully responsible for the collapse with the whole idea of peace.
I think that peace, if you speak of it as peace from the time of the Oslo Accords, is long time, is dead for many years. If you talk about Trump's peace plan, I think it's got a big boost now because there are many people in this coalition, and some of them are even outside of the coalition, and from both sides of the coalition, from Yoaz Hendel and Zvi Hauser, from the branch Derech Eretz they're called, but basically they are part of Blue and White, and they are major supporters for Trump's peace plan, and you can hear support of the peace plan from some, even Lieberman's party said that they support it. So we will find in the coalition, in the opposition, in both sides of the coalition, people who support applying sovereignty and going along the lines of Trump's peace plan. So I don't think it's dead. I think that many people who thought that peace for Israel will be achieved only if Israel will give everything and get nothing in return, I think they might be disappointed. But it's a big step for the sovereignty movement to this kind of government.
All right, Mark. Well, I think let's get your final take, and then unfortunately that's all our time.
The state of the world. I don't think the Trump administration. I doubt. Let's put it that way. The Trump administration or anyone else in the world will have the bandwidth to deal with any sort of Trump peace plan in the next few months. I think the situation of the economies of the world will be such that everyone will be dealing with only that issue, and I can't imagine that anyone's going to really want to deal with an issue like the peace plan that has all sorts of repercussions and issues in the Sunni Arab states and everything else. My guess is everything is on hold until the world recovers to some extent, but we'll have to see.
All right, well, that is all the time that we have in the elections arena. I'd like to thank our guests, of course, Mark Schulman and Simcha Rothman, again for joining us. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Also, remember that for more news from ILTV, please follow us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. Stay safe. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you next time.